In this task, we will continue with the hands-on lab to generate a series of chained prompts to get the answer to the question of which type of mammal lays the largest eggs. In the previous task, we had seen that with a simple prompt, posing the question to ChatGPT provided an answer to the question of which mammal lays the largest eggs. However, the answer ChatGPT gave was incorrect, as it stated that only reptiles, amphibians, and birds lay eggs. So we are going to try chaining prompts to get better results. The first thing we need to do is define the main question, which would be the same as we defined earlier. Once defined with the name question, we will begin to generate the chaining of the different queries. So we are going to generate 3 queries, 1, 2, and 3. Then, with the simple sequential chain function, we will chain them together. The first thing we need to do here is program the OpenAI model if we have not previously done so. For this, we use the OpenAI function, generate the template, which in this case is made up solely of a changing variable, which is the question variable, and use the prompt template function to generate this template. It takes the input variables, which would be just a single question variable, and then takes the template. Once we have this, we will use the LLM chain command to chain the query. So we use LLM chain, pass it the model we want to use, which is the one we just defined above, and then also pass it the prompt template. With this, we have the first entry, the main question, and now we will generate different sub-questions. For the next one, we will indicate that there is a statement and then we add a second variable, the statement variable, and also a piece of invariant text that indicates to make a list of points, known in English as a valid point list, of the assumptions it made when producing the previous statement. That is, with this we indicate to ChatGPT to list the assumptions it made to get the answer to the question which mammal lays the largest eggs. The goal of having this list is to then pass each of the points from that list individually to ChatGPT and tell it whether that assumption is true or false. If it discovers that any of the assumptions are false, it will know that the answer it was giving is also false. So we generate this second query for ChatGPT, we use the prompt template function again. This template takes 2 arguments, it has the input variable equal to statement, which is what goes here, and as a template it uses this template. We use them chain again to chain the prompt and we indicate which model to use, which is the same as before, and which prompt template. Now in a third step, we will pass it a list of statements, which would be the assumptions it generated here, and we will indicate that for each statement, determine whether it is true or false. If it is false, explain why. And it takes a variable which is assertion, which is what is generated here. So we use the prompt template again, we pass this variable and the template, and with the LangCha function, we chain it again. Now we are going to add a final step in which we are going to indicate to ChatGPT that in light of the previous information, how would it respond in this case to the original question, which is the Q that we had defined before. We use the prompt template function again, it takes this second template, an input variable that would be fact, which it will get from the previous step, and we indicate the template again. We chain this step again and we would have 4 calls to ChatGPT using the same model and the prompt template that we just defined. Once we have the 4 queries that we want to send to ChatGPT, they need to be chained. We are going to generate a sequential process so that the results of the first prompt are the input to the second prompt and the results of the second prompt are the input to the third prompt and so on until finished. We use the simple sequential chain function, we indicate which chains it has to use, which prompts, so it would have to use the question chain, which is the first one we defined, the assumption chain, the fact checker chain, and the answer chain, and they would be executed sequentially. How do we execute it? Well, simply with the run function. Once it is defined, with run we indicate the input question, the Q, which was the initial question we wanted to answer, and with this, it is executed. So the question we want to answer is this one: what kind of mammal lays the largest eggs? And what does ChatGPT do? Let's see, let's run it. Here we can see how the process starts. This is the first sentence of the answer chain, and here it starts with the first part, which is to list the assumptions it has based on to get this answer, and it tells us that mammals include the platypus. And why the platypus? Because it already answers us that platypuses are the type of mammals that lay the largest eggs. So, to arrive at this conclusion, the assumptions are that mammals include the platypus, platypuses are capable of laying eggs, that platypus eggs are large compared to other animals. These would be the assumptions, and then we would move to step 2, which is to say whether the assumption is true or false. So, in step 2 it is reviewing the assumptions. So, mammals include the platypus, true, platypuses are capable of laying eggs, true, platypus eggs are large compared to other animals, false, but although this is false, the rest are true. It's just that the statement that platypus eggs are large is not large, as far as we can see they are small. So, as a result, it gives us this. Once it has shown the assumptions it bases on, it has contrasted them and has learned from that information, which would be in the last step that we indicated to it to use that information to respond. Then based on these assumptions it responds to us that platypuses are not the type of mammal that lays the largest eggs, but it tells us that platypuses do lay eggs. This would be the result that the prompt chain gives us, and finally the final result. As we can see, while it is true that it tells us that platypus eggs are not the largest, it does tell us that mammals lay eggs. If we go back to the previous step, it had told us directly that mammals do not lay eggs, that only reptiles lay eggs. Here it has already been able to identify a type of mammal, which is the platypus, that lays eggs. Now, if we reissue the query, by clicking directly on the cell, we will see how the results vary slightly, and it will show us another result. We can see how the assertions are slightly different. It talks to us about monotremes, which are a group of mammals, and they are the only known mammals that lay real eggs. Here it says there are 2 types of monotremes, the platypus and the echidna, but that platypus eggs are larger than those of the echidna, so the mammal that lays the largest eggs is the platypus. Here it has given us a much more accurate and precise answer.